when you talk about stunts, I always reflect back on my own accident in Coolie and say, you know, a day before the accident, I did some really mad stuff. I jumped off a bridge onto a moving train without any help. From a moving train onto a trolley on the platform. And in one shot, the trolley moved onto a staircase that was going down, and nothing happened to me. And a simple, you know, punch-up caused you this problem.
Now you can imagine the excitement of, you know, having to see Miranda House from outside and just admire it and, you know, just watch it from a distance, and suddenly to be given a legal permission to actually enter the portals of Miranda House.
When Salim Saab and Javed Saab narrated Diwar to me, and I was in the middle of doing another film with Yashji, and we'd already shot for 8 to 10 days, and I called him up, and because they said that Yashji would be the right person to direct this film, and so we called him, and he said, you know, let me finish this film, then I'll think about it. I said, no, just hear it. Salim Saab and Javed Saab have a very peculiar sense of humor as well. So every time about 5 scenes would be read, one voice would come from the background. 25 weeks, sir. Then they would release some more scenes would be narrated, and then one soft word, 50 weeks. And then this just kept on until we reached about 100 weeks. So Yashi said, yeah, okay, we'll do this film.
My mother was pregnant with me, very close to the 9th month. The Quit India movement started from Allahabad, and there were a lot of processions, and there were a lot of revolt and satyagraha movements all over the city. And on one such jalus, my mother, inspired by this whole movement and for freedom and Gandhiji and everyone, just ran out and joined this parade in that condition. They all ran and they got her and said, get back, you're not supposed to be doing all this in this kind of condition. And then somebody joked, agar tumhara ladka hua to uska naam inke khilaf rakh de.
I studied in Delhi University in KM College, and one of the greatest endeavors of every student that has been to Delhi University is to be able to stand in front of Miranda House, which had the most beautiful ladies and women studying there. So all the buses that we used to take to come to the university, we used to ask, yeah, Miranda House ke samne rokna, because we want to get down and just, you know, have a look and just go over. In KM College, we had a dramatic group, and fortunately what happened was that Miranda House was doing a play, a theatre play, where they required 3 boys. I was one of the boys that was chosen. 2 were from St. Stephen's, which was almost like a brother school to Miranda House, and we had to go for rehearsals there. Now you can imagine the excitement of, you know, having to see Miranda House from outside and just admire it and, you know, just watch it from a distance, and suddenly to be given a legal permission to actually enter the portals of Miranda House. So with a lot of, you know, pride and swagger, we just walked in from the back where the coffee house is, you know, from the back gate to Miranda House. And we walked in there, and we walked into the courtyard, and all these rooms up there, and all the girls are standing up there. And we had 3 of us walking, and suddenly you hear the girl saying, hi. Yeah, friend. So I can tell you, I've never been so embarrassed ever in my life.
I saw a picture of Robert Redford on a horse, and he had a typical cowboy jacket on, which had sparkling little bits on it, and I felt, hey, this looks very attractive. And then when we were thinking about the song, Yarana song, which was like a show, an event, a stage performance, I spoke to the producer and the director and said, you know, what if we made this with electric bulbs and you lit it up? And they said, gosh, this is a terrific idea, let's do it. So we got hold of Aki Bhai in Gabbana, and he constructed this jacket and everything. And after a lot of labor, we finally were able to connect all the wires and everything, and it went down through my jacket and through my trousers, millions of wires, and then finally joined into one wire, which was then stuck onto my heel of the shoe. And then taken off into a distant plug and plugged into 220 volts. And when it was plugged in, the lights came on and it looked very attractive. And so, fantastic, but how are we going to shoot this damn thing?
Right.
So the fact that we actually went and shot, there's another story to that. But it was difficult because we were in the middle of this huge Netaji Subhash Stadium in Kolkata. And the cameras were all over, so the wires would show and we had to take the shots very carefully, not put the lights too much in it. And the plug was only available in the dressing room, which was about 200 yards away and hidden inside a room. So I used to tell them, if you see me making some involuntary movements, make sure that this is not choreography, it's 220 volts going inside my system.
Right. You must have been worried about being electrocuted.
Yeah, it did happen a couple of times, and so we all screamed and shouted, and everyone rushed to pull the plug out. But then I stupidly put this thing as an item in one of my shows that I was doing in 1983.
Right.
And we had a revolving stage. We were performing in Madison Square Gardens in New York, and there was a revolving stage. And now, how do you work on a revolving stage with this wiring?
Right.
So the people said, "Oh, we have a device. We'll just extend the wire and we'll rotate the table and we'll rotate the cable around it.
Right.
And then when you start moving, it'll just unwind and you'll be fine." Now, in the heat of the moment, once I went onto the stage and the crowds and shouting, I moved in the wrong direction. So that was absolute mayhem. But and then I just got into the makeup room. That was my last performance, and I stamped on it and I said, "This is it. I'm never going to wear it again." But here we are doing it again. It was great fun. Now we have advanced technology.
I'm guessing there were no
small little batteries and remote control, and somebody from outside is being able to give rhythm to the lights and everything. It's great fun.
When the accident happened, obviously I wasn't aware of how serious it was, and nobody did for at least 72 hours. I was in a hospital in Bangalore, and I just thought that this was some kind of a very minor wound or a condition. But luckily there was another doctor that was visiting the hospital and taking one of his patients in for an operation, and Jaya just said, "My husband is here and would you like to have a look at him?" And he just walked into the door, and I was lying on the bed somewhere here, and he says, "Get this guy into the OT because it's very serious." She said, "No, we are thinking of taking him this evening back to Bombay," and so he says he won't be alive by then. So I was ruled in. His own patient was rolled out. I was rolled in, and we did the surgery. Soon after that, I went into almost a haze and a coma-like situation. Within 5 days of coming into breech candy, I had another surgery, and I didn't come out of that one for a very, very long time. And it was, I was actually clinically dead for a couple of minutes. Then Dr. Woodwardia, who looked after me and an absolute lifesaver, just said, "I'm going to take a last chance," and he started pumping cortisone injections into me, one after another, almost 40 ampules of it, with the hope that something would happen. And then I when I did come out of hospital, I realized, and I heard the stories and read the news, and there was just an unbelievable feeling of gratitude. And even gratitude is sounding so less. I felt that this was a great burden that I will carry.
Because I've heard really remarkable stories.
Every day, hundreds of people used to congregate at the hospital. But Jaya noticed that always, every time she drove into the hospital in the morning, there used to be one guy standing near the gate with one rose, and he would hand her the rose and say, "Just..." And it was the best rose in the entire city. And then when I recovered and I was at home, I got a message saying that there's this chap who's come with that rose. And so Jaya went and met him and said, "Yeah, this is the guy." So I went out and I met him, and he said, "I'm a black marketeer, and with all the black marketing that I've done in your movies, I've been able to marry off 2 of my sisters, build a home, and I've come to tell you that I'm going back to Kashmir, where he came from, and I'm going to finish this job that I was doing here."
A day before the accident. I did some really mad stuff. I jumped off a bridge onto a moving train without any help. From a moving train onto a trolley on the platform. And in one shot, the trolley moved onto a staircase that was going down, and nothing happened to me. And a simple, punch-up caused you this problem. So no stunt should ever be taken. That's something that I realized, that no stunt should be taken lightly, and they're all tough. But yes, coming back to the question, I feel that some of the facilities that were available to us in those days were very sparse, and we didn't have the kind of protection gadgetry that artists are, have now. The first time we actually found out that you cannot hurt yourself by, jumping off a cliff or a running train or from some height was in Sholay, because they brought on this technology with the foreign technicians of jumping into a cardboard box, which is so easy and no one thought about it. Then this whole question about wiring, you wear wires, and then because of digitalization you could remove the wires and so on. So you had people, climbing up skyscrapers at Mount Everest, without any problems. But yes, the gadgetry has helped. So I think that there's far more security now as far as hurting yourself is concerned.
At the height of your fandom, of a kind, as I said, I don't think has ever been seen before or since, you chose to join politics. Was that purely an emotional decision? Because Mrs. Gandhi had been assassinated, you felt that Rajiv, your friend, needed you. Purely emotional?
Yes, purely emotional. I know nothing of politics. I never knew it then either. Just the fact that, there was friendship, there was a relationship, and I took an emotional decision and stood for her.
You've told me in the past in interviews that it's a regret, the fact that you entered politics. You were never cut out for politics. But I've often wondered, did the Bofors controversy force you to quit politics, or did you just wake up one day and realize this is not for me?
No, it was purely coincidental that Bofors happened a day before I decided to resign. So when Bofors did come out, at that time we never had television where even there was instant reporting, so you had to wait for a day before the next news came out, and they thought that I had resigned because of Bofors. No, it wasn't because.
But you had taken a conscious decision that enough is enough.
Yeah, I went and met Rajiv ji, and I told him, I'm not comfortable doing this. I don't know anything about it, and I would like to leave.
What's going on? All India Radio doesn't select you as an announcer, and then Madhuri Filmfare contest doesn't see you good enough to be in cinema.
Yeah, my brother came across an advert in the press at that time, which was out from Filmfare Madhuri Talent Contest, and 5 or 6 very prominent producer directors were auditioning for candidates to come in and offer them a life in films for almost 3 years, signing them up, giving them a salary. I was unaware of the fact that there was a Films and Television Institute in Pune, and had I known that, I would have wanted to join it and perhaps graduate with some kind of qualification. And when I saw this advert, I felt this was a very legitimate and right kind of an approach to joining movies. So I applied, and I was rejected in the preliminaries. But by that time, I think I had sort of made up my mind that I would not want to stay on in Calcutta anymore.
That's a brave decision.
Yeah,
a brave decision to leave that lovely life at Park Street and come to Mumbai, or Bombay as it was known then, with no idea really whether you would succeed or not.
Absolutely no idea at all.
The rejections must have hurt somewhere. I'm told you actually even then spent one night on a bench at Marine Drive?
Yeah.
No money, or?
Yeah, didn't have a roof, and didn't have money obviously to stay either in a hotel or so on and so forth. Hardly any to eat also.
But I think that it's very important for people in my situation, not just as a production company. I don't sell as well as I used to before.
Okay.
There are stars that are bigger than me who demand and command a greater price, who are able to cover greater prices. So Shah Rukh and Salman and Amir and Hrithik and Ranbir, now.
Only because they're sort of they're the current crop.
Whatever the reason, I'm just saying that, you know, they can afford to have large budgets, and you know, their fees probably are also pretty large. Because I cannot, I'm not given that kind of pricing. Because my standing cannot be compared with them. Therefore, we limit ourselves to a smaller budget. Also, I feel that in the end, if we are producing it and if we make money on it, then yes, the company is ours, and in a sense, that's some kind of a repayment to what you may have lost by not charging an astronomical fee.
There is an obsession only with numbers. You worked back in the day in some of the most successful films, whether they were Sholay, whether that was Amar Akbar Anthony, and a whole bunch of others. Was it the same back then, this obsession just with box office?
Yeah, you know, the way of expressing it has changed.
Sure.
Today we talk about 100 and 200 and 300 crore.
Right.
In the olden days it used to be 25 weeks,
Golden
50
Jubilee
weeks, and 75 weeks. And I guess that remains, you know, we are in commerce, we are in business,
right.
and that has a factor. But it's interesting you mentioned that, because I still remember when Salim Saab and Javed Saab narrated Diwar to me.
Right.
And I was in the middle of doing another film with Yashji, and we'd already shot for 8 to 10 days. And I called him up, and because they said that Yashji would be the right person to direct this film. And so we called him, and he said, you know, let me finish this film, then I'll think about it. I said, no, just hear it.
Right.
Salim Saab and Javed Saab have a very peculiar sense of humor as well.
Right.
So every time about 5 scenes would be read, one voice would come from the background. 25 weeks, sir. Then they would release some more scenes would be narrated, and then one soft was 50 weeks. And then this just kept on until we reached about 100 weeks. So Yashi said, yeah, okay, we'll do this film. But that's, you know, just joking about it. But yeah, I think commerce does play in somebody's mind. For an actor to think that I should do this film because it's going to be doing 100, 200 crore business, I don't think that I would want to be in that bracket.
Right.
I would rather what character I'm playing and how the story is going. But I'll be, you know, enjoying doing what I'm doing rather than just doing something mechanical.
Kaun Banega Crorepati came as a surprise to me. It was heavily criticized earlier on of, you know, saying that you are making a huge error in your judgment. This is going to affect your value and your status. I just felt, you know, I really have no status. So if it's coming in, if I like doing it, you know, why not? And then we went ahead and did it. And the early episodes when we were recording, I just felt perhaps, you know, everyone that was warning me was right, because I wasn't entirely comfortable doing it. I wasn't entirely happy, but still, because it was a commitment and a job, I went ahead. And then suddenly the first broadcast took place, and I had the entire senior staff or management of Star come over to meet me. I was dubbing somewhere, and said it's become historic, and I couldn't really believe them.